Small and medium businesses are critical growth drivers. They're impacting this country's GDP, they impact your business success, and they impact LinkedIn's success. In fact, small and medium businesses' success is directly in line with our company's mission, which is to provide economic opportunity. We're proud to support this extremely valuable community, and this month, we're launching a site dedicated to empowering small businesses. We're also finished the first of a series of research focused on small businesses. We want to understand how social media impacts the small business value chain, how it's helping them address business challenges, and how it impacts the financial decision journey. So Charles White from TNS will be presenting our initial findings. This is just on North America and Canada. And then Scott Rowan, we're thrilled to welcome Scott Rowan back, VP of Digital Marketing and Innovation at Amex, who'll be discussing 6 months later his findings in terms of Open Forums relaunch and the success that they've seen with engagement and collaboration. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Charles.
Thank you, Jen, and I'll echo the thanks for everyone for staying here today. And I'm sure it is not to see me. I guess I'll attribute that to Scott or to our panel next. But what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the research that we partnered together with TNS and LinkedIn to look at what's happening in the small and medium business space as it relates to social media. And really, when you think about social media, or when you think about small and medium businesses and social media, the first question we really came at together is why small and medium-sized businesses? As Jen mentioned, we know that they're an important driver of the economy, but we can give just kind of 3 nuggets to talk about how important they are in terms of drivers of the economy. One is that they're a big part of the economy. Small and medium-sized businesses are alone $5.5 trillion in annual revenue. So we know they're big, but we also know that they're a big driver in the job market. Small businesses create 7 out of every 10 new jobs, and young firms in growth mode are really the firms that are driving the part of the economy which is creating new jobs in the market. So we've established that obviously small and medium-sized businesses are important to examine, but when we look at them in light of their social media behavior, we also see that they are all users of social media. So we have a large segment of the economy using social media, but we need to understand more about how and why they're using social media so that we can use that to our benefit as well. So we examined that in this study. We looked at just under 1,000 businesses, and we called business a small business in the 1 million to 10 million category, and a medium business was anywhere above that up to 50 million. And we looked at just under 1,000 of them and asked them questions like, what is your #1 business challenge? And perhaps not surprisingly, the #1 business challenge, the #1 business challenge of probably most businesses, is find new customers. And they told us that it's a challenge for us, and guess what? 61% of them said that social media helps answer that challenge. So when we look at that stat, it probably is easy for us to think about that being related to sort of the retail space, where finding new customers is sort of part of the everyday challenge. But we saw these results across industry segments. We saw it in industrial segments, professional services, manufacturing, et cetera. So we saw that a diverse number of small and medium-sized businesses in diverse different segments are telling us that social media is helping them grow. Now, beyond that, we also have seen that they're not just using it for demand generation. While 61% say they use it for the purpose of finding customers, 49% are telling us that they use social media for learning. So much of our day today has focused on looking at content creation as a means to reach customers, and that is the exact same thing that needs to be done with small and medium-sized businesses as well. We see that they tell us that they are using it to access a network of peers, learn from industry experts, and obtain insights and best practices. And if we go back to the very start of our day when Alan Blue told us that what LinkedIn is about is taking advantage of the brains of those around you, that's exactly what small and medium-sized businesses tell us they're doing in the market with social media. We've seen that this is particularly important for what we call hypergrowth businesses, those businesses that tell us that they've grown significantly from last year to this year. And when we look at those businesses, which is about 16% of all of the businesses we surveyed, we see that they report increasing their social media spend. 73% of them report increasing their social media spend versus those non-growth businesses in that 42%. So there's a strong correlation between those businesses which are in this hyper-growth mode and their investment in social media. And when we look at the other marketing channels that they can be investing in or that they tell us they're investing in, social media is at the top of that list. It's the one that they're spending the most, or they tell us of those categories at the highest rate that they're spending in social media and social ads more than any other category. Beyond just seeing social media as an important area for small and medium businesses, we see that it's particularly important for the group that's here today in the financial services sector. 68% of small and medium-sized businesses say that they use social media for finance-related reasons. And so we think, and when we ask them their top reasons, it's to keep up to date on financial trends, gather preliminary financial info. But the third one is integral to their business and their operations, and that's seek advice on a financial decision. So not only do we know that content is important, but it's among the highest echelons of the business decisions that they have to make. They're going to social media to help guide them in their businesses. So where are, and when we see social media being an important source for them, we also know that it drives action. In the path to purchase, for those that have used social media for discovery and consideration, those stages of the path to purchase, 93% of those who've used it in those two stages were driven to some form of action, whether it be learning or discussing or actually making a purchase. And that's a pretty impressive number. We know that we have a lot of focus on what's the ROI of social media. And while this number isn't the ROI, that magic number, it certainly speaks to action. Even more directly, we see that 37% were driven to purchase. They told us that they will open an account, that they have opened an account as a result of social media. They also have told us what they'd like to see. They not only said we like content, but we need specific types of content. And when we look at the number one reason, the number one area they're looking for best practice information, how-to guides, and checklists. Sometimes, the easiest things that we might seek to be able to put out there are what they're seeking more of. They're seeking more actual guidance in decision making. So where are they looking at for social media? Well, LinkedIn is at the top of that list. 57% tell us they have openness to LinkedIn as a source for information related to financial information in social media sites. That number increases to 69% when we look at that among hypergrowth businesses. So here we say, not only do we know that hypergrowth businesses are investing more in social media, we know where to find them and where to access them, and that's through LinkedIn. The reason, perhaps, is that only LinkedIn really provides us these 4 C's around social media, and they tell us as such that it's one of the only sources. 3 in 4 small and medium-sized businesses say that LinkedIn is a source that helps them, that they believe has credibility. 2 in 3 tell us it is a valid destination for forming connection. We also see that same 2 and 3 number say that it's a place that has context. We talked about the importance of context earlier today. And lastly, that it is a form of community. 2 and 3 again tell us it's a form of community. And we see that those 4 C's help us go to cross into having benefit across the small and medium-sized business value chain. Meaning that when we think about social media, again, it is not just for demand generation in marketing and sales, but they also speak to LinkedIn as a source through those 4 C's of each of these areas. That I can build sourcing through understanding credibility of the people that are out there, customer service through the community, and open innovation also through that community. So what are the best practices for marketers that we've seen from this study? Well, the first is that you should enable learning throughout each phase of the purchase path. That learning is a tool into reaching those customers. If you enable them to build their business through the content that you create and enable them to learn, you will also gain them as a customer. You should also target hypergrowth companies. By targeting hypergrowth companies, through social media, you have a direct inlet to the group that is growing the quickest. Provide resources for the entire value chain. Don't just focus on one piece of that chain, but use social media throughout the chain to enable benefit throughout that chain and also reflecting on the path to purchase. And lastly, build your credibility by facilitating open dialogue with small and medium-sized businesses. And I think that point is a critical one for us to examine, and I think that's why Scott's going to speak more to that point with talking about Amex Open Forum. Scott?
All right, excellent, thank you. So that was a lot of data, a lot of insights there. So hopefully you digested that, but we're going to have some Q&A so we can dig into it a little bit more. I found it pretty fascinating. I got a little bit of a preview a couple weeks ago, so I've been digesting it a bit. I'd say personally, the data that resonates most with me was at the beginning. So Charles talked about the fact that small businesses drive 5.5 trillion in revenue, but more importantly, they make up 99.7% of businesses in this country. So basically all business is small business. They are responsible, as you mentioned, for over 2/3 of the new jobs created in this country and over half of our GDP. So this is a really, really important segment, not just to small business owners and their local communities, but for all of us. So that's really exciting to see. It's what inspires me. I have the privilege of getting to work in Open, which is the small business group at American Express, dedicated to serving these customers. We've been around for over 25 years, this specific business unit, and we've got over 1,000 employees dedicated to serving small business owners. You heard earlier Audrey talk about a few of the programs that we've put on. Small Business Saturday, she referenced that day between Black Friday and Cyber Monday over the holiday weekend. And it had a pretty big impact to the insight that you said. The #1 need of these small business owners was to get customers in their doors. We drove 100 million people into shops and retail places and restaurants, small businesses on that single day. $5.7 billion were spent on that day because of us being able to leverage a lot of the social media channels to inspire consumers to go out and support their local businesses. We do a lot of work bringing businesses together to learn how they can win contracts from the government. The government is the biggest buyer from small businesses out there. And so we work with them because it's not easy to work with the government, but we work with small businesses on how to win contracts, how to team up together to work together so they can get larger contracts from small business. But the program that I wanted to talk a little bit more about today was Open Forum. And rather than going through it right away, I thought I would just show a clip. It's a recent TV spot that we ran just explaining what Open Forum is. Before I jump there, it is important that I make up one point. So, as great as this customer base is, as inspiring as this customer base is, as much as they drive for our economy, there's one problem. The problem is they fail at a very high rate. The fact is that 56% of businesses fail within 4 years. And I'm not talking about the tech startups in Silicon Valley. I'm talking about all businesses, restaurant, retail, dry cleaners, every business. The average, and this is coming from government statistics, is that 56% fail within 4 years. And if you think about it, and this is what drives us and motivates us, but if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. You can understand why they fail at such a high rate. They're starting a new business. They haven't done this before. Every single day, they're doing something that they haven't had to deal with before. Hiring their first employee, dealing with taxes, setting up payroll, opening a new store. These are all new challenges that this business owner that is incredibly important for our economy is taking on, but unfortunately, it's very difficult and they tend to fail at a high rate. That's where we come in. This is where we're trying to have an impact. So let me run the commercial now.
If I can impart one lesson to a new business owner would be,
one thing I've learned is
my philosophy is real simple.
American Express Open Forum is an online community that helps our members connect and share ideas to make smart business decisions.
If you mess up, fess up.
Be your partner's best partner.
We built it for our members, but it's open for everyone.
There's not one way to do something.
No detail is too small.
American Express Open Forum. This is what membership is. This is what membership does.
So it gives you a little snippet of what Open Forum is all about. It's about helping connect business owners with other business owners. It's about inspiring. It's about providing expertise and helping business owners succeed. The interesting part about Open Forum is that it was started back in 2006. Okay, so we didn't have this great data that we just went through, that Charles walked us through back in 2006. We didn't pursue it because content marketing was getting all of this coverage. We didn't pursue it because social media was a hot new thing. In fact, Facebook hadn't even left the college campus when we started. And the reason we pursued this is because we were hosting physical events. And we bring in our customers, and we'd have people in a setting just like this. We'd have people like Richard Branson or Seth Godin talk about what it was like for them or the insights they have around small business. And they packed this room. And what was interesting is when they got off the stage, all these business owners, they didn't just walk away. They just networked. They talked to each other. They shared business cards. They learned from one another. And we sat there and observed this. And we said, OK, we need a bigger location. And we'd have another event. No matter what size location we would rent out, we packed the room. And we realized there was this opportunity for us to bring this online. It was almost an obligation that we needed to be able to allow these insights to be shared, these connections to be made. And this is back in 2006. So we weren't pursuing this because content marketing was a great thing, which it is, or that social media was a great thing, which it is. We were doing it because there was a true customer need, and we saw that friction point that we were trying to solve for. Now, when we entered the space, we did bring these insights into Open Forum, and it grew pretty quickly. Just recently, I'm trying to think our data to give some context. In a recent month, we probably had over 2 million uniques, unique members coming to Open Forum. And to put in context, there's 25 million small businesses out there, so we're about 10% of the market coming to our site to engage in conversation and learn is pretty significant. So we've grown a lot through this content. But up until recently, we didn't feel like we were fully unlocking the value of the community, bringing these people together to be able to learn from one another. And so that was an area we really thought that we could double down on. So last year, as was mentioned earlier, about a little over 6 months ago, I think it was May timeframe, in FinanceConnect 2013, we had the pleasure of introducing the new Open Forum. And we completely redesigned the site, but most importantly, we moved from a content marketing site, a site where we were providing a lot of insights, to a site that allowed people to join in a much more robust way and connect and learn from one another. And we built this off of LinkedIn. So I just wanted to share a couple quick insights on this, on what we've learned through the process. First, as you can see to some degree, we reoriented the site to be about giving and getting advice. We wanted this to be a real community. We still use editorial to highlight the most pressing needs or the most interesting advice that was being shared. We also tried to build into the experience the ability to join and be a member. We thought it was important that we still featured these experts, because experts were an important part, but we needed to balance it with user-generated content. Interestingly, what we found is within a very short amount of time, the amount of user-generated content, the advice that was being shared by people that were joining, far outpaced all of the content that was created in over 5 years leading up to that. That's really important because that's more advice being given to more people to help more businesses. We also did a lot on the design front to make it more visual, to create community highlights, and to push things forward in a much faster way. To give some context, we've been producing about 10 to 15 articles and videos every day. So we've got a large editorial team that's constantly listening to what is important out there in the marketplace and designing and developing content and publishing that every day. Now, if I were to talk about the 3 key insights that I've taken away from working with LinkedIn and the power that it's unlocked for us in this case, I boil it down to these 3 things. First is conversion. So we had a community before we relaunched this last year, but we had built it off of a proprietary system and allowed people to join our open forum through a login process and a community that we built ourselves. After launching Open Forum built on LinkedIn, so you could join via LinkedIn, your LinkedIn credentials, and leverage the profile of LinkedIn for the profile, within 5 weeks, we had more members than we had gathered in the preceding 5+ years. So it just shows the power that LinkedIn has enabled us to grow through a better experience. The second area that I would highlight is the shareability. So we allow people to share content and the advice that they're getting and giving across many different social channels, Facebook, Twitter, and others, email. But what we thought was very interesting is that not only was LinkedIn the largest share count, people were sharing via LinkedIn more than the other social networks, but people were sharing more via LinkedIn than Facebook and Twitter combined. So I thought that was a really powerful insight for us as we thought about how important building that community and drawing other people in to be able to share that advice. And the third area that was important for us was scale. We saw this organic growth. We saw that this was working, and we wanted to do more. We wanted to make sure that Open Forum was more powerful, more impactful, but it needed to reach more business owners. And so we worked very closely with LinkedIn to find new ways to get out in front through their platform. But the most interesting part was that we rolled up our sleeves together and actually co-created a new native ad unit within LinkedIn that enabled us to personalize this experience for the business owner on LinkedIn with Open Forum. And this was the first that LinkedIn had ever done this, and the first time we had pursued this. We co-created together, and the impact was dramatic. So we saw that this one ad unit outperformed our regular media buys on the web by 10-fold. So really, really powerful when you think about the ability to create a logged-in experience leveraging LinkedIn to convert people into membership in a much higher degree, to be able to then project that out from Open Forum into the LinkedIn universe at a massive scale. And then when it's right, when you have that product market fit and it's time to grow it, that LinkedIn was willing to work with us to co-create and create a way for us to scale up quickly. So we see a lot more potential ahead in many areas with LinkedIn, but those are the key attributes that we've seen so far in the last 6 months. So with that, I will open it up for questions. These people, by the way, these are all card members of ours. And somebody that I was working with and putting this together suggested not using this photo at the end. They thought potentially Amelia might scare some people from asking questions with her cleaver there. But I assure you, she's not here today. So please ask us some questions.
So Scott, I'm going to get started. We've had some great case studies today. Citi talked about community, HSBC talked about community and content, as well as Citi. But when I get asked from an innovation standpoint, what's truly unique? What excites me is to be able to leverage social data as a way to power identity, connections, knowledge. And really, that was a big move that you took in May, right? In completely overhauling Open Forum, changing how you authenticated. And so I guess, one of the questions I have was, that's a big investment. So what was the ROI, or how did you build a business case to be able to basically, make that investment? And you had mentioned, what is it, 5 years later or 6 years that you've had Open Forum as a community? Just, how do you continue to support and prove out the value?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, so I can answer that a couple different ways. The first is that we believe very strongly in this concept of reciprocal altruism. And it's actually a phrase that was coined by P&G, but the concept behind it is that if you give something away for free with truly and authentically not expecting anything back in return, that you get so much more. So in our hearts, and I really, it's Susan Sabat, our president, she's really an inspiring leader in telling us that we need to help these business owners in any way that we can. And if we do it, it will benefit us. So at one level, we know this is the right thing to do. And she has been the one that has allowed us to continue forward. Now that said, there's plenty of people that we work with on our finance group and our different teams saying, okay, that's all well and good, but what's the ROI? So we do spend a lot of time trying to understand the impact. And the reason why the change of moving into more of a community was really impactful is not only can we help more business owners and make it more personalized, but we can understand the impact better. So previously we had a lot of content that we would push out through our social channels, and it would come back to open forum, and we had lots of page views, maybe 20 million page views. So that's great, but what does that really mean? We know it's a good thing, but we couldn't really quantify it all the way through. So we spent a lot of time doing a number of things. One, the unique position we're in at American Express is we know when people log in, as an example, and to pay their bill. And so we were able to connect those that participate on Open Forum and those that are actually card members, and then we could track offline what the impact was to their loyalty. And so we were able to definitively show that people that engage in Open Forum, card members of ours, became more loyal after using it. Now this is not causal. Of course, we have all these discussions internally of is that positive select or not. But what we were able to show is at a minimum, the people that were using this were our best customers. And potentially we're having impact in making them more loyal. The second area is with the impact of tying into LinkedIn, the back end of this is actually built across our team to connect with Marketo and Salesforce and other infrastructure that allow us to understand who's a card member, customer of ours, and who's a prospect, and what happens over time. So now we're able to see when one of these prospects that engages us in content and community ultimately becomes a card member, and be able to determine how long that took and how much money was spent to be able to build that relationship. So I wouldn't say that I've got an answer, 37% or something like that. But we have now built the infrastructure, and we can follow from a social interaction through reading content, through the life cycle, to ultimately becoming a card member and the loyalty of you over time.
Well, that's great. So the 37%, drive to action, opening an account, did that surprise you? Did it excite you? I'd be interested, Charles, from TNS, you do a lot of research with a small business, but Scott, since you brought up 37%.
So, of course, looking through all of this data, I think is really exciting. I wish I had all of this months or years ago to be able to talk internally about here is the definitive proof that this is the right thing to do, this is what business owners want. And so I think this is a great guide for a lot of people that need to make these inroads. Ultimately, the best measure that we try to measure, and it's a hard one, is are we having positive impact? Are we helping business owners in ways that are meaningful to them? And that's where you can start to look at some key performance indicators of engagement and return usage and so forth. But absolutely, I'm encouraged by seeing the statistics and the data and the insights that were just laid out, and it gives me more confidence that we're doing the right thing.
Yeah, I think it's also the fact that there's the balance of the 37% that were drawn to actually open an account from social media, but it's also the 93% that did something as a result that tells us that this is relevant. So that we know, we may not have 37% of ROI to report from those social media activities, but we have plenty of research to tell us this is relevant to people, and a good portion of those, at 37%, are actually opening an account at the end of the day. And so, again, it is difficult. We've had a few conversations today to say truly measure the ROI of this activity, but anyone seeing those statistics can say, we're doing the right thing, regardless of whether we have all of the measurement systems completely in place.
So what got me excited outside of the 37% was the impact that social had on the small business value chain. And when you just, Scott, shared all of the functionality and features, you really saw that small, that value chain in place, whether it be sourcing to operational efficiency to effectiveness with marketing and servicing. And so I'm just curious, is that something, I was curious on your thoughts. Is that something that you continuously see validated by the activity? And I guess that's what excited me to see the impact.
So absolutely, we're seeing it within our own value chain, being able to hear what's going on in the marketplace and respond to that, and then utilize that all the way through is hugely helpful to us, because it means we're able to be smarter and deliver more value and build deeper relationships with prospects and our customers. But quite frankly, it's also really encouraging to see our customers be able to leverage this. So a small business owner now has these tools that they never had before. I'm really excited for the fact that small business owners now have the technology and capabilities that only major businesses have had in the past. I mean, you see some of the innovations with, say, iBeacon with iOS, and you can imagine a small business now being able to treat customers as they walk in their stores the way Amazon treats people that come to Amazon.com. And I think it's going to empower business owners to be able to compete on equal footing in a way that they haven't been able to in many, many years.
Absolutely. So before I turn it over to the audience, I have one other question. So we focused on small and medium businesses, right? Between $1 million and $50 million. But you had mentioned, what was that 99%? There's a big part of the SMB segment, which we didn't talk about, which was the micro businesses. And I'm just curious, are there any inherent differences? Do you see them leveraging social or in different ways in what we just shared?
Yeah, it's so funny. I mean, every business owner that you talk to feels that they are different. And as you get to know them, they are unique. That's what's so inspiring, to be able to work with business owners and entrepreneurs. But there are some nuances and characteristics that we do see. And I'll give you a couple of anecdotes. These aren't the only ones that we look at. But as an example, the revenue size can be a predictor of what resonates most with small business owners. And so what we found is that the smaller small businesses, say, 200K, 250K and below, resonate. The altruistic approach to a lot of our marketing, which is Small Business Saturday, Open Forum, this Victory in Procurement with the government, all of these programs have a very altruistic bent. And that resonates very much with the smaller small businesses. And it's not that that doesn't also resonate with larger businesses, but those larger businesses, because they're a little bit more established, they are looking for sometimes more concrete and tangible benefits in addition to that. And so when we think about our messaging and our communications and our relationships with them, we have to be smart about these nuances in business. And that's really just a proxy. You could look at number of employees. As employees go through different growth cycles, there are many, many triggers and many moments where we sense something unique about the business owner that we try to treat them differently.
So I guess with that, I'd like to open it up. I do have some other questions in store, but it'd be great to hear any questions that you have on the research, on obviously the success that Amex has had. So hopefully we can get a couple of questions.
ROI keeps coming up in all these sessions, but isn't building a brand that people think very positively about, like your small business owner? I know that Small Business Saturday is so successful. I know you can't, but there's got to be a way to measure that kind of thing.
So we do. I mean,
yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off,
go
but
ahead.
I think I should have said this before. So much of what we do, we measure every which way, and brand is absolutely incredibly important. I think Audrey talked about the fact that we're a 164-year-old company, American Express, and we've changed many businesses, but the brand has still been the brand. And so we care deeply about this. we have many, many metrics, but the one that means the most to us is Net Promoter Score. And so of all the different brand awareness ones, to know that we're having an impact, material impact in improving our Net Promoter Score is really powerful to us. Now, it's hard to then put a dollar amount on that. We do spend time trying to figure that out. But we've been able to see the impact of programs like Small Business Saturday, programs like Open Forum, and their impact on Net Promoter Score for our customers and the receptivity for prospects to want to do business with us. So absolutely 100%. Brand is super important, and we measure it, and these programs have a very positive impact on that.
I believe, Keith, there was a question over there. Yeah, perfect.
I'm just curious if you think that if Amex had chosen a different segment of the population to target for an activity like this, if it would have been as successful, because Amex has obviously owned kind of the small business space for a while. How do you think this would have turned out differently?
It's a good question. Not one that I could probably answer definitively, but I do think that the fact that we were as large as we were within the segment, that we had such a long track record there, that it helped us. I mean, you can study many different strategic approaches, but obviously pursuing something that's adjacent has a higher success rate. So I think that was absolutely a factor. But I think probably the more important factor to us was the fact that we got to the customer insight, that we observed our customer. We saw the objective that they were going after, which was to grow, to get customers in their door. And we saw how they were doing it, and they were kind of hacking their way to get there. But there was a friction point there. And that's where we felt like we had success, is when we saw that observation of what they were doing and that friction, to be able to try to solve for that is where you see a lot of success and innovation ultimately yield results. So I think it's a combination of really understanding that customer insight, as well as the fact that we had some credibility in the space to actually be there.
And I think the research shows us, certainly that if nothing else, that the small and medium-sized businesses, they go up that ladder, are hungry for that content. They're telling us that they use social media to help make decisions like that. So I think, that both tells us that certainly why partly Amex is successful, because they're hungry for that, but also that there are other pockets and other markets likely out there around social media.
And I would say, I talked a little bit about how we were in the space by having events, and we just logically moved along that continuum. And you look back and it seems very innovative, and it was, but we were proving it out each step of the way. One of the interesting inflection points was the financial crisis. So in 2008, when things got really bad, everybody was trying to figure out what they needed to do to succeed and get by. Small business owners were incredibly challenged. So I'm sure we all had issues at that point in time, but people stopped walking into those stores. Mm-hmm. They no longer could get access to capital in the ways that they were before. This was really, really difficult for small businesses at this time, and they had no place to turn. And as we were trying to figure this out, Open Forum existed then. What we saw is traffic skyrocketed. And as we were trying to get our own house in order and figure out our path forward, we saw all these business owners coming to us organically because of the challenges. And that's when we doubled down on Open Forum. We realized we had something here and we could do more with it. So I think you're right on that you have to figure out what's at the core, but then you need to be observing and sensing what's happening in the marketplace and be able to act on it.
Any other questions? I actually have one more. So Scott, is there any question that you would have liked answered? Because I mentioned that this was our first phase, but if there could be one question or data point that you'd love to get more information around, what would that be?
That's an interesting question. I think the one that we struggle the most with is we care a lot about ROI. That always comes up. But we're trying to have positive impact on business owners. That's hard to measure. And what we would be much happier to be able to figure out if what we're doing has a real impact on the outcome of these businesses. And I think that applies to any business that's being run out there. Are the social efforts, are the content efforts, are the mobile efforts actually having the end benefit on the user in a way that is meaningful? And we believe it is, based on all of the research we're doing and based on the traction of them coming back. But that type of ROI would be even more compelling than our own internal ROI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think as Clara mentioned in the previous session, sort of sometimes we have a commoditized view of financial services and consumer experience and business experience, the experience of customers. And that change over time is, I think, an increasingly important measure to sort of look at success that ultimately then drives ROI.
Yeah, if you look back, we started by talking about 99.7% of businesses are small business. We talk about 2/3 of the new jobs created in this country over the last several years were small business, half of GDP. But if we're effective in what we're doing, then we should make that even better, that we should be able to improve the overall economy. To try to tie that back, I think would be incredibly powerful. Hard, but incredibly powerful. Next year, FinanceConnect 2015.
Yeah, next year.
Yeah. We'll be
Anyway,
here.
well, thank you both. Thank you all. We do have one more session, a very exciting finale. Thank you.